All right, everybody, welcome to the second episode of Season 4 in Soul Things Podcast. I'm your host, Brenna, and today I'm so thrilled to have Kalynn Dunn on the show. Kalynn and I actually worked together at a previous job that I had, working at a nonprofit counseling center that specializes in pregnancy-related issues. So I'm really excited to get her expertise in here, but why don't you introduce yourself to my audience, and then if you could sort of share about your background and your clinical expertise.
Sure. So again, my name is Kalynn and I am an art therapist. I am a therapist. I am a strategic thinker and creative.
Yes.
And I'm happy to be here today. Current license that I hold is LPC. I've been LCPC eligible for a while and I plan on getting that done this year along with some other licensures.
Yes, that's awesome. What are the other licensures?
So I really do love working with perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. Mm-hmm. So there's a certification with that. And then I plan on becoming board certified art therapist since I am an art therapist as well.
Yes, and she's a very good artist at that. I see her art along the walls here and everything. It's so inspiring. It's therapeutic to even look at it. It's so beautiful. Okay, so today we are covering a topic that is something I have been wrestling through for quite a long time, especially starting grad school and everything. And I think a lot of my audience can relate to this, is the idea of self-care and also the idea of self-compassion. I think those two kind of can go hand in hand. I think they are pretty related. And I'm sure meeting with clients and your experience with that have seen a lot of that, but also maybe experiencing it in your own life. Because the reason that I was choosing Kalynn for this topic, I remember just working with her and always feeling like I want to get to where Kalynn is at the point in her life of the way that she cares for herself and the way that she's attuned to her body and like just is very intentional with being kind to herself and like listening. And I think a lot of us can struggle with just trying to like push through things and being very harsh with ourselves and not taking the time or even valuing the time to have self-care. So I'm so excited to be chatting about this topic. And so I kind of would love for you to start off if you could share a little bit about your self-care journey. And I know that's kind of a broad question, but could you sort of maybe bring us to a point of where you realized, oh my gosh, like I'm not taking care of myself, like this isn't working anymore. And then what steps did you kind of take to care for yourself, and what does that look like?
That is a big question, and I will do my best. And I want to say that key word that you said is journey, and it has been a journey. And even though I'm not where I used to be, I am still growing, learning, unlearning, and evolving into a person that I can say years from now, oh, I am also not where I used to be. And I think as a lifelong learner and someone that wants to be teachable, that is important. But yeah, so my self-care journey or journey to wellness and wholeness actually started when I was coming out of my 20s. And I feel like my 20s for me was survival mode. And I didn't understand that I was in survival mode. I'm saying that now because I have the language now, but even when I started my healing and self-care journey, I didn't know I was in survival mode. It's so clear now, but back then I was just like, this is normal. So many things are not normal and they're not okay.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get there. But I actually was in a place where I should, by what was going on, I wasn't in any crises.
Yeah.
Like the crises of my life had stopped. And I was just not okay. I couldn't understand why I wasn't okay when for the first time things were like leveled out. And it was because, again, language I have now was I was living and functioning in survival mode. And I didn't know how to like live and function without crisis. And so therefore I wasn't in an actual crisis, but mentally and emotionally I was.
Yeah.
So I was like, how is it that I should be okay for the first time and I'm not? So that's when I actually first reached out again. There was a time in my life I wanted to enter into therapy and it just didn't work out. And then I began to find a therapist. So I started that journey.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned this idea of survival mode. For those people that are listening that are kind of like, I think you can sort of get a sense from the word, but could you sort of walk us through, like, what are some signs of, like, maybe someone listening being like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was in survival mode. Like, what were some things you were noticing that made you aware of, like, I'm just surviving. Like, what is this?
That's a great question. And again, it wasn't until I got out of it that I even realized. Yeah. But looking back, I'm going to pause and think.
Yeah.
Because if I can help somebody else, I will, and I want to. I think some of the things that I realized is that in your 20s, it's like goal-oriented and do all these things. But I was running... I'm going to say this. Hopefully most of your listeners are Christians, and if they're not, come on to Jesus.
Come to Jesus.
But I was running past God, as in I wasn't allowing God to truly be the head of my life. And I don't mean that as in I didn't accept him, but I didn't truly understand what it meant to be his and to be taken care of by him. So therefore, I had all these goals and objectives, and I was running. But I was running, trying to always like catch up. And I don't know, catch up to what or to who, for a matter of fact. And then financially, my 20s weren't good financially. So I was surviving on, the traditional paycheck to paycheck. But I mean like literally, when is the pay going to come in by like what time? Because I have things to take care of. Survival mode financially look like for me, for an example, I've used this in therapy to clients and just as I talk sometimes, but Christmas is a holiday that's every December 25th. The date has not changed the whole time I've been alive, right? So Christmas every year and I'm not from the city where I currently live, right? So that means I'm going to travel for Christmas to be with loved ones. However, every year Christmas was such a burden, such a trial and tribulation, because I didn't have enough to even get home. We're not talking about presents or like anything else.
Just travel.
Just enough to travel for a plane ticket. A plane ticket literally every year put me into panic mode before Christmas. And again, Christmas has not changed. It was always there at the same exact time. But because, again, survival of my finances, it was only enough like, what can I do for today? There wasn't the space to save or like kind of think strategically. I wish there was, and I would have created that, because again, setting up for the future, but that I couldn't be future oriented. Even though I was goal oriented, goals, I wasn't actually future oriented. And I don't know how, but those contradicted one another. So hopefully that's a good example.
Yeah, I think you broke it down really well, of like your brain is literally just so focused on like the essentials and getting to what you need to do to survive, right? And so that doesn't leave a lot of space for anything else, like anything to cultivate a thriving like life. So when you kind of realized this survival brain was happening and you're in this mode, because I imagine, like, I think when I feel like when I'm in those spaces, I'm very like tense. Like I can feel it in my body. It's not just like my brain is running. It's like it's a holistic experience of like things that are, and I think the more I'm learning about brain and body connection and all this stuff, it makes sense, especially with stuff with trauma and things like that. But so once you kind of reach that point, and you said you started going to therapy, what were some things that you were learning in therapy or in your walk with the Lord or through yourself that you were like, wow, this would be really helpful for people to know who are struggling? I mean, go see a therapist too, right? This isn't just your end all be all, but like people that are working through this, like what would you say to those people to take steps to get out of survival mode? So
I know this is a podcast, so I will try and explain this, but I was living, I don't know if you just saw me scrunch up. I'm scrunching my body, like my shoulders are to my ears almost. And that's how I was walking around my 20s. Like I was walking around like that. So again, survival mode when I didn't even know. So yes, I was 100% stressed. However, that's how I was functioning. And if you're functioning like that, you think it's normal.
Yeah.
So I thought it was normal to be in pain. I thought it was normal to have perpetual headaches, to not be able to sleep well, or to wake up in the middle of the night because something was bothering and troubling you. All that felt normal. And again, on the goals things, I don't know if I've been to so many countless conferences or talks where it's like, what keeps you up at night? So many things did. And that was like normalized to be okay. Where I'm like, no, that's not okay. And that might be somebody's normal, but it's not the life that God called me to live. Because he came that kind of life and life to the full. Full. That means to me abundance, overflowing, and goodness, where I'm sitting there walking around tight. So I think, yes, it was mind and body. It was everything. And I will say, when you're in a survival mode, sometimes you need to do that because guess what? You're surviving. But life is not meant to live that way. And I will say, I'm speaking at this moment, and I can acknowledge that from a place of privilege, because I do think it is a privilege to be able to do some of the wellness things well. Like, it is a privilege to be able to go to therapy. That's why I love where I'm currently at, because services are free. But it is a privilege even for me to be able to say, like, for again with COVID and things, I didn't even have a copay for my therapeutic services, but I have great insurance, and I know that that is a privilege. And to even be in the space to be like, I'm not well, this is what I want to access. But I think now people are a little bit more aware that life can be different. And I think when that starts to like nudge on you, kind of sit with that and say, what is it, or how do I want my life to be different? Is it because you're feeling panic? Is it because you're feeling like everything is so intense always? That's not normal. Like, that's not okay. And life is not supposed to be it's not meant to be lived like that.
That's a really good point, mentioning the privilege aspect. And I think for people listening who maybe don't have the means, or maybe the idea of realizing right now, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize that this wasn't normal. Like, it's not okay to like constantly be in this state. Like there's ways to do it, but I don't even know where to start. I don't know, where, like, if I could even find a therapist or not. But like, what are maybe some things that you do like day to day now that just kind of help you in your self-care that could be maybe beneficial for somebody listening, in addition to like, potentially finding like help if that's possible. But what are some things that you have found that are free and helpful? And
I will give as many tips and tricks as I can. I'm going to start with something that my previous therapist gave to me that was such a true gift. And I'm saying that now, but I couldn't stand it and I was irritated by it. But it's something I actually practice to this day.
Okay.
And it helped take me out of survival mode. A lot of things did. So I'll try and share as many as I can. So please keep asking if I'm not explaining. So one of the things is when you're in, like, again, the mode that I talk about. And again, just because I'm in a great place in my journey doesn't mean I still don't have things to learn, because life still lives. Okay. So one of the things is a simple exercise when I started to begin to like trust her was she asked me, she's like, so how, she was getting a sense of how I responded to things. And again, everything was with this intensity because everything felt intense. And she's like, how about we try this? Like, okay. It was as simple as, before you answer your phone, so whether it be a text or an alert or a phone call, take 3 deep breaths. That's it. And I kid you not, it is something I practice to this day, because for me, if everything is like urgent, and important, it kind of takes out of that. And then you start to realize, like, oh, this isn't urgent. And it wasn't even that who was calling or what was happening. It was me. Like, I was ready for the next panic, because that, again, was life for a moment in time. But no, it's okay now. And it's okay if I miss a phone call. It's okay if I'm in the bathroom. It's okay if I am in class. Like, these are things that are okay. And also, no, like, that is considered normal to, actually be living life. So I she would ask me that, and she would ask me to re-practice that. And I kid you not, I could not stand it. But it was one of those pivotal things because it started to train me, because our phone is something we pick up. I forget the studies, but they say how many times we just even pick it up a day. And I was picking it up with, like, it was creating even more tension. It wasn't helping me, like, settle in. So I had to retrain myself to say, like, okay. And even if what I'm picking up is an urgency, I can kind of walk into that or go into that with a place of, like, calm, where I'm not just thinking about, like, oh my gosh, what do I have to do? But I can actually, like, receive what's coming in and decide. Like, being able to decide, I would say, is a privilege. To decide, how am I going to handle this, or how am I going to navigate? And just, it's something I practice to this day. And again, this is a tip that was given years ago. Yeah,
I really like that because it's so simple. Anyone can do it. I think you're also kind of touching on this idea of, like, self-regulation almost, because right, because we're all like, how do we sort of, like, soothe ourselves and calm ourselves down so we can move forward, not in that survival state. And I think, like, something as simple as that is, like, super helpful. And so something I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about is this idea of self-compassion tied to self-care, right? So it's like something that was said in one of my trauma classes that I thought was interesting is, like, kind of an initial step, or like a framework of how you're seeing yourself, is like, are you valuing yourself enough to care for yourself, right? Because you don't really want to take care of something you don't value. And that was so profound to me. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like, do I have compassion for myself? Do I value myself so I can actually, like, because I think a part of this conversation is, like, the harshness, at least for my story, is like, the value wasn't there. Like, I wasn't valuing myself. So I would just, like, all right, let me answer this text. Let me do this, like, and just push myself because I didn't think I deserved this space to be like, oh my gosh, like, breathe, like, you know, and, like, care. So, like, was that a part of your story at all? Or, like, what role does self-compassion sort of play for you in this self-care journey that you're on?
You said a couple of things I want to tackle.
Yeah.
The worth piece. Like, yes, you are worthy. So I want to even pause, and in that, how you were describing yourself and I described myself, is I didn't think I was worthy. That's not truth. So as a believer, where is the truth? And even as a human being, where is the truth? I know truth to people want to distort it and look at it, but if we even take a moment, where is the truth? And the truth is, you are worthy. You were created by a creator that literally knows every hair in your head. So yeah, you are worthy. You are a prized and beloved possession. Well, not possession, but person. Sorry. But to God, like, you are a good thing. Literally, you know, he takes care of the birds, but us, we were given dominion and power. So somebody with all of that, yes, you are worthy. Yes, I am worthy. So even starting there, but I know that is even hard. But, you know, they say, I think the research is like 80,000 thoughts come into our head in a day, and I forget the percentage of negative, but it's above like 70, which is not okay. Not good. So our thoughts are negative. But what, again, asking ourselves, what is the truth in this moment? And these are little pauses. So you don't have to do it with everything that comes into your mind. But it's kind of like that ruminating thought, which ruminating is when it's coming up over and over. It's like a cycle, broken record. In those moments that we all have, ask yourself, what is the truth? Where is the truth? And lean into that. That can help and start something where you can then go into the negative thoughts. Again, if we're having 80,000 thoughts a day, we don't need to tackle each thought. Who has time for that? Okay? But if we start with one thought in one day, that is being self-compassionate and loving ourselves. So when you said self-compassion, I think of the scripture that was distorted in my mind for a lot of years of love thy neighbor as thyself. I got so caught up on love thy neighbor, which is also part of my story of survival mode, because survival was, I was high in service. So it was like, let me take care of everybody else that comes into my influence, because I was taught that was a good girl or good Christian to serve.
Yeah.
Well, love thy neighbor as thyself. So as thyself piece didn't exist. It didn't, because it came second, but really comes first.
Yeah.
So if I'm supposed to love my neighbor and don't love myself, how can I actually love my neighbor?
Oof.
Like, so this, if we're going on the biblical route, we gotta learn to love ourselves. And again, the truth is we were created. We were loved. We were fashioned. We were formed before, but even before we were in the womb. So therefore, oh my gosh, I am enough. Who I am is enough. And so starting there, there's this thing that I say from time to time. I forget, it came up in my teen years, but it's I am enough, I have enough, and I do enough. And I catch myself saying that from time to time because it's truth.
Yeah.
Because I was reading something the other day. It's like, you know, when you're at work and you are only at 40% yourself that day, and you give 40%, you gave 100%. And I think, you know, we have this thought that, oh, I give 40%, so I've not been enough. No, but if our 40% was what we have, and we gave that, that's
good. That's so good. And because I feel like the message constantly, especially in like corporate America world too, it's like hustle culture, like push yourself past your limits, and like that's what's prized and valuable is your production value. Like we have become as a society, like what is your output? What are you producing? And I feel like I'm resonating so much with these things that you're talking about, and still wrestling like within myself of like valuing yourself and all these things. It's like, what can you do to recenter yourself on that truth? Because I think for the longest time, the whole self-love idea was like kind of taken captive by the culture in certain ways. And I was like, oh, that's a bunch of, what is that? Like, you know, like, and I did like belittle it in a lot of ways, because that verse, like you're saying, I totally just looked at that last part of like service, love others. But if you're neglecting that part of you, it's like, it's going to affect how you're able to like love other people too, I think, and experience God's love for you. And this book that I'm sort of reading through, it's called Try Softer. I'll link it in the description. It's by this trauma therapist, and it's from a phrase that her therapist said to herself of trying softer, which I love that idea of like gentle and soft, because I feel like that's what the Lord is to us, right? He's gentle and lowly, like he loves you, and he's just like, I don't know if he's like holding your hand and he cares about like the details of your life. And like the more I'm like learning about the Lord, the more it's just like, yeah, like he's so, like he is not speaking to me the way that I'm speaking to myself of like, why are you, you know, and this like harshness. And so, yeah, she had mentioned a couple of things, and I don't know if this is something, I'd love to get your thoughts on this of, you know, say like I'm going through a situation and I'm being really hard on myself, like, oh my gosh, like I should have done better on that paper. I didn't give it enough time, whatever. Like you're being really hard on yourself. And there's this idea of, well, you know, think about a friend going through a similar situation. Like, how would you talk to a friend? Would you say the things that you're saying to yourself? And then the other thing the book mentions is think of your inner child, basically, like 8-year-old Brenna. Like, how would you be talking to her in this situation? And that really shifted my perspective. I don't know if that's something that you've talked about before with clients or have had said to you, but what are your thoughts on like almost like this perspective shifting in terms of like how you talk to yourself?
Yeah, I think that kind of speaks to like the negative thoughts and the negative thinking is the perspective switching is helpful. This quote I got from a pastor, I can't remember who, but it's on one of my mirrors somewhere. It said, "Let your perspective be your passport, not your prison."
Oof.
And so it's something I think about from time to time when I'm like in there. I'm like, wow, is this imprisoning me?
Yeah.
Or is it a passport to something greater, or freedom?
Yeah.
And my perspective has a lot to do with that. So I think when we kind of, it's actually a Gestalt therapy to like kind of play something else. So we're a little bit, or like, you know, kind of doing chair exercises if you're familiar. So it's kind of like that, like talking to your inner child or your younger self or a friend, because it's easier to love that way. Because in the moment, again, that whole I'm not worthy, or I didn't do enough, or I should have, could have, like we can should ourselves into oblivion. But, and well, we didn't, and so we're here today. So how can we be kind? And I think self-compassion is a form of grace, and if grace is a gift, that
Mm-hmm.
unmerited favor,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to receive gifts. And I think that's a hard thing to understand. It's okay to receive gifts. Like, it's just okay. Gifts can come in so many different forms, but it's okay to receive gifts. And if that is a gift from the Father to give you unmerited favor, something that you did not earn, receive it. Receive it. Just receive it. So in those moments, I think it is very helpful. Like, treat yourself like you would someone that you do love. And again, when we were younger children, we were just a little bit more free and like less judgments about the world, was running around, and we're just ready to receive. And somehow we are kinder to younger children than we are like our adult counterparts. And so going back to your inner child or your younger self is great, along with how would you talk to your best friend? Because you want, if we think about it, your best friend or your good friends, you want the best for them. You want them to see them prosper. You want them to have all the good things they deserve. You want them to be in healthy relationships. You want their finances to flourish. You want their careers to be great. You want them to achieve their goals. Why not for yourself? Because again, scripturally, love thy neighbor as yourself. So if you want that for your best friend and can't want that for yourself, you're not even loving your best friend well. If you're not just first loving yourself. Brene Brown says, she's a great person.
Look up Brene Brown.
But she says, you can't pour from an empty cup. And again, as a believer, I have come that you may have life and life to the full. So I believe when we're saying like, I have to, and goals and all these things, we're trying to run ahead of God. Like I used to, and still have to check my own self daily almost. Like, am I running ahead of God? As in, am I not receiving the gifts that He has given to me so that I can do things from a place of abundance? Because that's what He wants from me. And it's okay that I receive that because I am His child. So if I'm coming from a place of abundance, it's overflow. So therefore, I am not giving people from fumes. Therefore, I'm not struggling with resentment or bitterness or like, why do they have something that I don't have yet? Because again, it's my overflow. So I'm good. I have enough. I'm not sitting here like running, hoping, serving other people. Scarcity and poverty mentality right there. And that's what it is. And I've lived in that so long, which again, I'm identifying as survival mode, that I have to realize that is not who God has created me. That's clenching my shoulders up again. So a first step is just like, just realizing you are enough. And there's like I think it's called the Personal Bill of Rights. I don't know if I can, but it's like these phrases that my old therapist used to read to me, and I didn't believe them. So I even started something as simple as there. You can Google it. I'm pretty sure it's called Personal Bill of Rights. And it's just like these worthy statements. Because I'm sure there's a listener out there that's like, well, I don't believe these things. Girl or sir, ma'am or mister, I've been there. But you are worthy. Like, you really are worthy and you are enough. Like, I can't stress that enough because that is solid goodness truth.
Yes. When something you had said about shooting ourselves to death, my therapist talks about that a lot. You're shooting all over yourself, and I was like, I'm what? But it's true. Like, you're pushing yourself so hard. And I think I want to speak to all the really, because I'm a type 3 on the Enneagram for all y'all that follow. So I'm a very doer, like push productivity. So this whole past semester has been a huge learning curve for me. And even just listening to this conversation, it's like bringing healing to myself. Like, I can just even feel like relief coming out, just like hearing these things of like steps you can take and things like that. But I wanted to speak to some of the like really heavy doers to this podcast is I'm like, my brain automatically goes, okay, like, so if I take care of myself, then that means that I can love other people better. And that's true. But the purpose of like, it is like, you are valuable. Like you're saying, like with receiving, it's like the end is that of like the Lord has made you enough. Like, you are enough. Like, instead of like, okay, if I do this, then that means I can be more like productive in serving others. Does that make sense? So I think my brain is like, okay, yeah. Like, so if I can get really good at taking care of myself, then that means I can like care for other people, which is important, but I think I don't want to overlook the idea of like, yeah, but it's because you're valuable that you're receiving this. Does that make sense? I don't know if you've ever struggled with that.
I think it's a process, and I would say start there.
Yeah.
Even if that's the mindset with it, that's okay. Because I think as the journey continues, you realize like, oh, that worth piece will come up even a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's not self-care. Self-care is, I think, honoring God. And so how can I best honor God? And if we're talking about productivity, He created all of this. So He doesn't need my productivity. It's even a privilege to be able to be productive. So how about we be productive towards the things that honor God the most?
Wow.
So again, if we're like, I got to get to here, where is here? Who gave us the here? And if we're not in alignment, that here remains because we're chasing something. Yeah. But are we chasing after what God has for us? Like, and I think this is something I do struggle with. A lot of things that I can be asked to do are good, but that doesn't mean I'm called to do all of them. And a lot of things are in my skill set, but that doesn't mean I am called to do them. And I will say this is a lot of healing work that I started before 2020, right? But then 2020 came, and it, for me, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's a time," but for me, it was the pressure cooker of all the stuff I had been doing in therapy the years prior. And the reason why is because I was, oh, okay, if I do the self-care, if I check these items. But then 2020 came, and as I through this time, I think I've talked about urgency and priorities. Hello, the world stopped. Things I thought would never happen, and all the dates and the things I had in my calendar, they did not matter. And guess what? I still lived. So why is it 3 years later I'm trying to recreate busy when there is proof in the pudding that things got stripped down? And so what I would ask a lot of listeners at this moment, this is we're 3 years out from when pretty much when it started. What have you learned? What gift did you receive in that season? Even if it was hard, even if you were like, I realized I was lonely. Well, what does loneliness look like for you? And so lonely just doesn't mean business, but it's like, maybe are my friends really giving into me pouring into me in a way that I want? And reciprocity. So don't just be a taker out there, be a giver too. But like, are you surrounded by the right people? Because like, it wasn't going back to the new or back to normal. Our normal kind of stunk before, if we really think about it. Because most of the world was, especially Western society, America, chasing things that truly didn't matter. So for me, again, it was a lot of work that I was doing to try and slow down. But when the pandemic hit, there was like literally the world stopped. And I was like, oh, okay, God. And I am still trying to this day, 3 years later, not to go back, because I think go back in society terms was oppressive. The bottom line, productivity, all this other stuff, it wasn't working. Health issues. My health is better because I am not doing all these things. I'm not, again, as much as I was doing the work, 2020 helped stop. Like, not even slow down. There were things that stopped. And some of those things I left because they need to be left behind. The Lord never wanted me to pick them up in the first place. So honestly, I forgot the question.
No, you're on a roll. This is like gold, guys. Please be taking notes. And I think a lot of people can relate to the whole, just going through a pandemic and the global trauma that can create in your mind and your body, and like how that impacts your self-care. And something like, even preparing for this conversation and thinking through this, I'm like, man, like, it sounds like such a simple question, but I'm like, why is it so, like, why is self-care so hard? Like, why? Like, and I know there's so many elements to it. I'm like, why is self-compassion so hard? Like, why, like, these things, like, why is this set, like every single person struggles with this, I think. Like, so it's like, but where are these lies coming from? Where is this idea of like not being worthy coming from, and all of this stuff? And like in your experience and in your journey, like have you come to find like where have the sources of this been coming from? You know, like when I'm wrestling with myself, I'm like, why can't I just like, all right, be like, love yourself, be kind to yourself. Like, why is it this like battle, you know?
Same scripture, John 10:10. So I come so that Jesus, not me,
yeah,
that we have life and life to the full.
Yeah.
Guess what? It didn't talk about the enemy. The enemy comes to kill, to steal, and destroy. What beautiful, not beautiful, beautiful and like, kill, steal, and destroy. Negative thoughts, guess what they do? Kill, steal, and destroy.
Yeah.
Guess what? These, I'm not good enough. That kills, steals, and destroys. So I think one of the ways that the enemy has gotten us, specifically, I'm saying Western American society because that's what I live and that's what I know, is if you get the individual, you'll get the family. If you get the family, you'll get the community. So of course, like, yes, we are ourselves, but the enemy is coming to kill, steal, and destroy. So these like things that we see in the world, like if you think about it, our media, even social media, tells us, it kind of feeds into that enoughness. Because I think a lot of times, I don't know if people follow people, like, let's say Instagram. You see people and you see them doing well, but that's somebody's highlight reel or somebody's production. It's not real life. Like, it's not the day-to-day and what got there to get it. So it's like the highlight reel. But we're seeing these moments and comparing our whole lives to just these little clips or even these other like video things that we're seeing of other people that are highly catered to look a certain way, but that's not real life. And so again, we're seeing a lot of things that are killing, stealing, and destroying, and then we're taking that in, and so then we're like, oh, well, I'm not good enough, and then we should on ourselves so much because it's like this comparison, which really is, I don't know whose quote it is, but it is a thief of joy. When we're comparing to other people, or do other people struggle with this? And so it's like, the enemy. And if you think about it, these things, receiving from the Lord, putting the Lord at his rightful place that he is, and who he is, and then who he says we are, we wouldn't have these battles. So there's it says prayer and supplication always is a constant. So sometimes I think we get, like, if you gain from this podcast, I'm so grateful in this moment. However, this isn't enough. You got to keep going. We got to fill our tanks because we can't pour from an empty cup. So like church is great on Sundays. Go. Be a part of a great community. But that's not going to sustain you through the whole week. We got to be like readers and doers. So even self-care, reading your word and getting up to seek the Lord first, or whenever you can throughout the day, that's kind of turning over and giving your first fruits. I try and do it in the morning because first fruits. And just like, well, kind of setting, if you think about it, my word of the year is ease.
Ooh, so, I love that. I love that, Kalynn. Ooh.
So, and I realized I can't function in ease when things are out of alignment. So doing an alignment check, a body scan, a life scan. Well, how am I feeling in here? That's why you might notice, like, oh, I'm headaches, or my tension, and or like it could be finances. I'm big on getting those together because it's been a lot of years trying, and I'm still doing it. But like, what is out of alignment? And again, the more we are aligned, and I believe this way first before outside. So another phrase I use is upside down, inside out. A lot of our culture is, let me do this way. And then, oh, God, help me with this. But we got to go upside down, inside out. And if we kind of think that way, we'll get in alignment. Things will be easier.
So, like, how do you live in this tension of, like, the already and not yet, right? So it's like, like you've kind of touched on it throughout this conversation, like the 40%. And, like, so it's like giving yourself that grace of like, this is where I'm at now, but knowing that like, because like, right, like some people, like you're still in this survival, like, you know, things aren't exactly what you want it to be, but it can't just be fixed overnight. So it's like, how do you live within that tension of like, okay, like this is where I'm at, but I want to be like here. Because like, that's how I'm feeling, like even doing the work of therapy and things like that. It's like, like I just want to go to a session and it's magically like turned around. Because this quote that I love from one of the readings that we had last semester was, God's gracious way comes through confession and repentance, not self-criticism. And so it's like, yeah, like if there's areas in your life you need to work on and like work through, like, yes, like, you know, taking the time to do that, but it's also like giving yourself the patience and the grace to like experience God's grace and allowing that to like push you to and move you to the next, you know, level, or I don't know the correct term, but yeah, how do you live within that tension, Kate?
So I'm going to use the term self-compassion, but then break it down to gratitude.
Yeah.
And kind of practicing gratitude. And it's like, in this moment, like in this moment, I can't do anything else. So this moment is what I have. In this moment, you can't do anything else.
That's true.
Like we can't like multi-focus.
Yeah.
We can multitask often, but we cannot multi-focus. So in this moment, I am being enough by being here and being present with you.
Yeah.
Like, this is the best I can give. Can I probably go back? Because I don't like microphones and video cameras. I can probably go back and be like, oh my gosh, that was terrible. But in this moment, I truthfully can identify that this is the best I had. So my future self that's criticizing this podcast even, it was the best that I had. And that is the truth. Like, I am here and I'm present. Yeah. So to the person or people that are out there, because it's not just one, you are never alone. I can promise you that. It's realizing in this moment, or even today, kind of at the end of the day, what did I do today? And then it's like, wow, that was cool that I did X, Y, and Z. It might have been like, I took a long shower. That's great. If showering actually is one of my things that like really brings me joy. It's a concept. I mean, it's a daily thing, but like really taking a mindful shower, like in a mindful shower. Can I go there?
Yeah, if you want to speak on some like mindfulness stuff. Yeah.
So another thing from a therapist of mine was when I shower, because I really do like hot water cleansing. It really in itself is just like, oh my gosh. And it's something we do every day. However, we can get so caught up in showering. It's a quick ritual and we're not even like present. So honestly, next time you shower, like when you're turning on the hot water, I like really hot water. They say we pretty much like to burn ourselves. That is true with me. I'm like, yes, hot water and soap ministry is one of my favorites. But like when we're in the shower, be mindful of the water literally pouring down and really feel it touching your skin. Really be mindful when you're soaping your loofah or wash rag or whatever, and mindful like this body that is a gift. You are like washing it right now and taking care of it. So just really, again, and if that's all too much, too fast, literally just pay attention to the water. Yes. Literally just pay attention to the water and enjoy the water just falling on you. Yeah.
What I love about mindfulness, is like that bringing into the present, but also there's this beautiful thing in mindfulness of like no judgment. Like it's like, I think with our emotions and like the harshness that we can have, it's like, I'm noticing that my chest feels tight, or I'm noticing that I said that to myself, instead of like, because I think it can create this like spiral, right, of like, I can't even do self-care right, or like, you know, it's like the irony of that. It's like you're not even caring for yourself while you're trying to care for yourself, and so it's like it sounds kind of silly, but it's like it's like one of the exercises in the book was like putting your hand on your heart, and it's like just notice it. Absolutely. You don't have to have like a that was good, that was bad attitude of just like, I'm curious. That's interesting. And like that was totally new to me of like, oh my gosh. So like being present in like a shower or eating a good meal or whatever your thing is. It's also like when these emotions are coming, it's like, oh, just notice it, you know? And it's like, instead of like beating yourself up to death, it's like, it's a journey, right? It's like you can hear all this stuff and take it in, but it's like at least knowing you can start just taking one step.
One step. And that is enough.
Yes.
Because like if your today is better than your yesterday, you are winning.
Come on.
Like,
that's good.
That's it.
That's so
good. And then
good.
tomorrow, we might do the same step, and we might stay at that step for months. And guess what? That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay, because you're learning it. It takes a while to learn something new.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a while to be kind to yourself. Again, 80-something thousand thoughts. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
So it's going to take a little bit, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of asked about like, what if I like the checklist, checklist, schmecklish. They don't matter.
Burn them all. Burn them all.
Yeah. And it's like, what is in your hands in this moment? So this is something I have to repeatedly ask myself throughout the day. Is what is in my hands right now? And again, I said a moment ago, right now I'm in this podcast. So I am not thinking about, there's stuff I have to do later today. Yeah. But right now I am here. And that is the best I can do and be. Before I started this journey, I could be doing this podcast. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to even pay attention to what I'm saying. Yeah. Things were happening and I was functioning, but I wasn't living. Yeah. So there's another thing. Are you living or are you existing? I'm not meant to just exist. I am meant to live. Yeah. Life and life to the full. Yeah. I mean, and living is a part of that. So I'm just here right now. Yeah. And everything else will work itself out. Yeah. And who knows? We might not claiming this, but we might walk out and something else might happen. The world shuts down again. Yeah. So it's like, but I was where I was supposed to be.
Yeah. And that's so true. And even just hearing that, I feel even like more of a sense of relief, because my thing is I want to control, right? I think the existing part for me is tied to this idea of, all right, like if I can get 10 of these things done in this hour, then I can do this. And it's like, you don't even realize, like, you're not even being like present, but you're also trying to play God here. Like, and I'm not trying to knock, like, yeah, sure. Like if you're like, productivity has its place and there are good things that keeps the world running in a way. But it's like, if we are missing each other and we are missing ourselves, like we're missing out on life. Like you're saying, we're not engaging to the fullest. Like
just existing.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, yeah, you could get all those things done.
Absolutely.
Awesome. But it's like, what are the deeper things that the Lord is calling us into to be in those present things? Because He's got it. Like He's in control. And like if one of the things I hope you guys take away in listening to this conversation is like what Kalynn's saying is like, it's okay. Like just hear those words. If you forget everything else, just hear like, it's okay. Like it's going to be okay. And like allow the Lord to do the good work in Him that He's already doing in you, right? You know, like this is part of your journey. If you're listening, if you wanted to make it part of your journey, which I'm so glad that you are. But so kind of, I think there's so many beautiful points in this conversation, but is there anything that you'd want to share, kind of parting words to the audience that you hope that they will remember, take away, or a part of your story that you wanted to share, that you could leave with our audience?
So I'm listening to Burnett. She's I know this, but you disclose in this moment Enneagram 3, which is more of the doer achiever. Achievement is fine and it's okay. You're meant to achieve great things, but not everything. So what are the great things you are meant to achieve? And go there. And that is beyond more than enough, because you're going to do that thing well versus chasing all these things that weren't yours to be with. For me, if we're talking Enneagram, I'm a 6, so safety and security is really important to me. I can worst case scenario better than anyone. I think that is a gift. Which, when I first learned about the Enneagram, didn't like it. Now I'm just kind of like, whatever with it. It's a helpful tool. But the thing I learned is to use my safety security as a gift versus thinking like, oh, it's something wrong with me. This is something else I have to change and something else I have to work on. Oh, it means I have anxiety all the time. I can't focus. No, it's not. That's not true. Yeah. But guess what? So one of the things that I do, again, I do worst case scenarios. So I think one of the greatest things my therapist said to me, because I'm an even if person with worst case scenarios. I'm sorry, I'm a what if.
What if, yeah.
What if. So what if a situation? What if this? Because I like control so I can feel safe and secure. Yes. Wait, I don't have control over anything. Anything. And the older I get, the more I'm realizing how true that is. So what if, I can do it it's so quick that I don't even notice I do it anymore. And it's not a hindrance. So I'm like, fine. So I don't think, oh, being a 6 is the worst thing. But it's the what if to the even if. So even if that's going to be okay. So when I've said throughout this podcast that it's going to be okay, I mean that. I am not saying that to pacify you. I'm not saying that to just, ooh, that sounds good. I mean it from like a place of, from a place of struggle, from a place of hardship to a place of growth, and knowing that the best truly is yet to come. And I want to tap into that. I don't want to do things that hinder me. So what ifs to a point that it couldn't function, that doesn't mean the best was yet to come, because I was thinking the worst is yet to come. And so I was prepared for the worst. But no, the best is yet to come. So now my mindset, again, thanks to therapy and good friends, I didn't mention good friends, and like being support around the right system, people, great support system. My what ifs are even ifs, and I'm just in a better place than I've ever been, and I want to be in a better place, even better place tomorrow.
Yes. I hope that for you too, Kalynn. Thank you so much for sharing these encouraging words, guys. And I'll leave it on that positive note. We're going to hold hope for you guys. We're holding hope for each other in this journey, and the best is yet to come. I love that line. And I just want to thank you guys again for listening to Soul Things. Feel free to engage in our community on Instagram. I'll be sharing some more content hopefully soon. But thank you guys so much for joining me on navigating this crazy journey of your 20s and just young adulthood. But remember that even in the hard spaces, His grace abounds. I'll see you guys later.